Frank Saravalli, NHL insider, every year does his trade target list. And coming in at number 1 on that list is Brock Nelson. So I know some fans have been worried about what kind of return are you going to get for Brock Nelson because he's been struggling. He's been ice cold.
Yeah.
But I think the point that I wanted to make was and get into is that you still might be able to fetch a lot because guys who are perennial 30 goal scorers, even in a down year, and play center, that's a very coveted thing here.
And yeah, you're right. He is a little, not even a little, he's very cold. He's as cold as it is outside right now. But other teams are going to say, just like, I don't know how to go with that, but they're going to say we can fix him. If we bring him here, we can get him back to be that 30-ish goal player, or we effectively have what could be a 30 goal player, 60-point player on our third line, right? So they're going to want that he's going to be the best center, clearly, based off the trade bait board on the market. And teams love centers for good reason. They control the middle up and down the ice. And Brock Nelson has made a career, at least since Barry Trotz, of being a pretty goddamn good one. And so when you add him or have that as being available, a lot of teams are going to fight, and that price is going to go up.
Right. And for reference, the number 2 center is Yanni Gourde. So, like, think of the drop off from a Brock Nelson type player to Yanni Gourde. And all due respect to Yanni Gourde, like, really good role player. And if you want to talk about bottom 6 center on a championship level team, like, yeah, he did that for a very long time. But the difference between Brock Nelson and Yanni Gourde is fairly significant.
It's significant. Yeah, you're going from a guy who can do what Yanni Gourde does, maybe not to the same degree in terms of the physicality of that role, but in terms of the skill and the scoring, Brock is not even, it's a whole other stratosphere between the two of them. And so you add that to any cup contender, or any cup contender is going to think, if I'm adding that sets me apart right away. Does it actually work? Remains to be seen. But then you also have the idea that Brock Nelson is pretty goddamn good in the playoffs when the Islanders went on those deep runs. And so, again, price is going to go up, even if he's not producing that well.
And Saravalli mentioned the Minnesota Wild as a team. And I think it makes sense. It's his home state, and, you know, it would be a really cool story. But something else that he mentions, which I'm excited for, is the Four Nations face-off tournament. Brock Nelson was selected for that by Bill Guerin, who is the GM of the Minnesota Wild. So I'm almost looking at that as like a showcase, if you will, for some of these guys.
Exactly. It's going to be a big showcase for Brock Nelson. You're absolutely right. On the biggest stage for Team USA, who is probably going to, they're probably going to do well, Team USA. Team Canada has a lot of talent up front, a lot of talent on the blue line, but they ain't got a hope in hell in the net. Like, when you're Samuel Montembeault is your third goalie, you got problems, son. Whereas the Americans don't have that problem at all, right? Like, their goaltending depth chart is just stupid. It starts with Connor Hellebuck, which is already a stone wall to begin with.
Yeah, that helps. But then you have guys like Jeremy Swayman, and like it's deep.
Yeah, exactly. And so Brock Nelson, who is not going to play, I would imagine, in their top 6, but he'll play somewhere within the bottom 6, which is exactly where these teams are going to be trading, or these teams that want him are going to be playing him anyways. So they get to see him in that specific role-ish. It's not quite the same because it's a best-on-best tournament, but effectively the same. And so, okay, well, how does he do with these certain minutes? How does he react? And I'm sure that Brock Nelson is going to look good in that tournament. And things are just going to go north in terms of the value on Brock Nelson for us. 100%.
That's my hope. And like, I keep going back to, and it's a little bit different. So maybe the package is slightly tweaked, but I go back to the Islanders Bo Horvat trade. And I think like Brock and Bo, similar kind of players. Now Nelson's a little bit older, but an expiring UFA. I think you're looking at a first round pick and either a really good prospect or a roster player to go along with him.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. The video that I put on our YouTube page said the same thing. It starts with the first round pick, and then you can squabble about like what type of player we're getting back, what type of asset we're getting back on top of that. And I know Bo Horvat got 3 assets in return. We attack on a couple of years to Brock Nelson compared to when Bo Horvat was traded. And you lose that 3rd asset, and even then, it was a toss in. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's not like Beauvillier really did all that much.
Exactly.
Since then. To be fair, he had a hot start in Vancouver, and then that fizzled out quickly. Unfortunately, we've seen that a lot, and now he's kind of bounced around the league.
Yeah, classic 16-game Beauvillier. It's hot and cold between 16 games. That's how it works. But therein lies a problem for the value. I mean, not the value, but who we can trade Brock Nelson to. If we just begin with that 1st-round pick, if that is a prerequisite and as it should be to get Brock Nelson, we're not talking, I would imagine, 1st-round picks in 2026 or in 2027. We're talking 1st-round picks next year. And that's a problem when it comes to Minnesota, who doesn't have that 1st-round pick next year. Doesn't mean they can't acquire it in another trade, but
sure.
Like, who wants to do the mental arithmetic for that? As it stands now, they don't have one, and that's a problem already for Brock Nelson.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I just figured I would pull up the tankathon for NHL.com, and you look at some of these teams, like Vegas sent their 1st-round pick to Nashville. Toronto sent it to Chicago, Minnesota to Columbus, Edmonton to Philly, Colorado to Philly, New Jersey to Calgary. You're running out of options, but I would think maybe a team like Winnipeg, or I keep going back to Dallas, but
yep.
I feel there's a reason I keep going back to it. It's because it makes sense.
It makes sense. You look at their center depth chart. I want to bring it up here because I think it's Rope Hintz, Matt Duchene, and Maverick Bourque. I think it is their center depth. And with all due respect to Maverick Bourque, that's not really that's a big drop off. It is. As it stands now in Daily Faceoff, it's Rupe Hintz, Matt Duchene, Maverick Bourque, Arttu Hiri. Never heard of that guy. That's a big drop off. But if you can put Brock Nelson between Sam Steele and Logan Stankoven, although ideally we get Stankoven back, you put Brock Nelson on the 3rd line, and that spine for Dallas aligns itself pretty goddamn well.
And think about it too. They lost Tyler Seguin. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months, which is a long time. So put him on LTIR. That gives him the money. And who knows? Maybe you get Seguin back for the playoffs. You do a little Mark Stone action, or Nikita Kucherov action. Whoever, or was it Braden Point? I don't remember on Tampa Bay who was out. And
was it Stamkos?
So he did that one year too. But like the point being, like that kind of thing where it's like, hey, maybe when we get to the playoff run, even Islanders, Adam Pelech in the bubble was able to come back, so they definitely, I think, need someone else in their forward group after losing Seguin, and adding a guy like Brock Nelson, who, as you mentioned too, really good playoff player. It feels like a no-brainer.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.